I sat on the floor of my room, wrapped in silence, and let the tears fall for you, each drop carrying the weight of words I never spoke, feelings I never shared, and a love that never found its way. As I sat on the floor, I realized that crying wasn't just a release, it was a silent prayer for the love we once had, a mourning for what was lost, and a hope that somehow you'd find your way back to me. The room was empty, but the silence was deafening as I cried for you. I cried for the memories that no longer fit, for the future we once imagined, and for the love that slipped away. I sat on the floor, feeling the weight of all my unspoken words and unanswered questions. Every tear that fell was a reminder of everything I wished I could have told you before it was too late. Crying for you wasn't just about the pain you caused. It was also for the love that never truly faded, no matter how far we drifted. I sat on the floor, alone, but my heart was still filled with echoes of you. Sitting there with my back against the cold floor, I couldn't help but wonder where we went wrong. How did we go from everything to nothing? And yet, all I could do was cry for you, the love that never fully left my heart. In that moment, as I sat on the floor of my room, I felt the weight of every decision, every choice, and every regret. I cried for the time we wasted, for the love that never got to flourish, and for the silence that now consumed us. Tears fell from my eyes as I sat on the floor of my room, each one a tiny reminder of how deeply I cared, how deeply I still cared. But the hardest part wasn't the crying, it was accepting that you may never feel the same. I sat on the floor, letting the tears flow freely, not because I was weak, but because sometimes letting go of the love you thought was forever is the only way to heal the heart. Crying for you was like an emotional release, an exhausting process of coming to terms with the fact that sometimes love isn't enough to keep two people together. The hardest part was accepting that truth while still loving you. In the stillness of my room, I sat on the floor, feeling the void where you once were. Tears stained my cheeks as I mourned not only the end of what we had, but the loss of a future we'd never get to share. Sitting on the floor, I let the tears come, not just for the heartbreak you left behind, but for the part of me that still believes in us, even though reality tells me to let go. As I sat on the floor of my room, the tears came easily. It was as if the space around me had become a mirror of the emptiness I felt inside, and every tear I shed was a reflection of the love I still couldn't forget. I cried for the version of you I loved, the one I thought I knew. But now, sitting on the floor, I realized that sometimes people change in ways we can't anticipate, and we're left with nothing but memories and tears. There's something about sitting on the floor, surrounded by the quiet of your room, that makes the pain more real. It's in those moments that you realize how deeply you still care, even when you know it's time to let go. I sat on the floor and cried for you because in my heart, I knew you were still out there, but you were slipping further away from me with every passing day. And I couldn't help but wonder if you ever thought of me at all. Tears blurred my vision as I sat on the floor, the weight of my emotions pressing down on me. It was a feeling of loss, not just for the love we shared, but for the person I used to be when I was with you. The silence in my room felt like a heavy weight as I sat on the floor, my heart aching with the memories of us. Every tear was a confession of the love I still had, despite everything that had changed. I didn't just cry for the love we lost. I cried for the person I became when I was with you. Sitting there, I realized that I didn't just miss you. I missed the version of myself that you made me feel like I was. Sitting on the floor, feeling the coolness of the ground beneath me, I let the tears come. Each one was a story, a memory, a goodbye to something I once thought was forever. Sometimes, sitting on the floor and crying isn't about weakness. It's about acknowledging the hurt, the pain, and the longing for something that may never come back, even though you still want it more than anything. I cried for you because you weren't just a person in my life. You were the person who made me believe in things I never thought possible. And now, as I sat on the floor, all I could do was mourn the loss of that belief. The tears that fell as I sat on the floor were more than just sorrow. They were an attempt to let go of the love that still clung to my heart, even when I knew it was no longer enough to hold us together.